Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to the holiday season here at the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 133. That is the 133rd trolley stop here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of Empowered Publicity. Thank you for spending some time with us once again. Thank you for returning back to our neighborhood for another heartfelt interview. And as we're in the process of celebrating the holiday season, we celebrate a lot of things. We celebrate the heritage of our ancestors, especially because, you know, many of us come from different walks of life. We come from different backgrounds. I know that for me, I'm part Polish and I'm part Lithuanian. So it's interesting because always around the holiday season, I'll always go back to the quality time that I spent with my family growing up and going over to my grandmother's house. And we would celebrate, I believe it's called the Wigilia, which is the Polish meatless meal. And so you'd have the different kinds of pierogies and, you know, the different kinds of fish, different kinds of soups. And it's an important aspect of our lives to be able to have a greater understanding of where we came from, where our ancestors came from, and leave it to a brand new children's book to help us really share a loving tribute to the immigrants who have brought us their gifts, their skills, their talents, and their hearts to really strengthen the fabric of our country and to strengthen the fabric of our lives. And we are super excited because such a beautiful children's book is really helping little ones to learn more about immigrants. We encourage you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, again, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here this week on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, SelinaAlko.com. You can stay connected with Selina via any of her social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, which we've included in the description below. If Amazon is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can head on over to Amazon and purchase your copy of I Is for Immigrants, which again is such a beautiful book. And we're going to be talking so much more about immigrants. This is courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Henry Holt and Company. The trolley is going across the country from San Diego all the way over to the beautiful state of New York, which I do know very fondly, spent a good portion of my time, many of my earthly years out in the state of New York in Buffalo. Joining us is our featured guest here on episode number 133 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, award-winning children's author and illustrator, Selina Alko, who comes highly recommended from one of our favorite neighbors, Dan Yacarino. If you missed our most recent episode with Dan, of course, talking about the brand new release, The Longest Storm, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Mind Edition. I love how this beautiful things are happening right now. Introductions, connections, miracles, etc., and so forth. So Selina, thank you so much for spending some time with us here in our neighborhood today. How are things with you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful fall day, and I'm just really delighted to be here speaking with you right now.
Yes, this is, I love your book on so many levels, and it's a very unique book. Before we talk about I Is for Immigrants, you have a wonderful backstory. One of the things that I really love to start off each of the Children's Book Spotlight Series episodes with is that in some way, shape, or form, we always have an origin story. What brought us to the dance, so to speak? For some people, when it comes to their love of children, maybe growing up, a person knew very early on they wanted to be a mom or a dad. Maybe they knew that they wanted to also be an educator. Maybe someone, you know, just had a strong connection with children's books growing up. I know for me, it was the Berenstain Bears. This message is near and dear to your heart. This isn't just the traditional children's book. Could you share this a little bit about your journey and how the immigrants in your life inspired you to be able to become a children's author and to pen this beautiful brand new book that we're talking about here today?
Sure. So Actually, I am an immigrant. I was born and raised in Vancouver, Canada. And my father was an immigrant born in Istanbul, Turkey. And he made his way to Canada by way of New York City when he finished the army in his 20s. So he, met my mother, whose family came to Canada from Poland and Russia, Jewish immigrants, and my father was Jewish Turk. And so the two of them married and had children, raised my sister and I. And my father was also, not only was he an immigrant who spoke 7 languages, but he was also an artist. So he taught me a lot about appreciating art, and my love for stories really came from my father as well. So then, when it was time for me to decide what to do with my life, and in choosing a college, I moved to New York City to go to art school. And with the permission and support of my father. And so not only did he he was a role model for me in terms of moving countries to pursue his dream, and also his love of art and storytelling and his encouragement are all pretty formative in how I decided to pursue my own career making children's books, and moving to New York City, and eventually becoming an American citizen, and now spending the past couple of decades in the publishing world, writing and illustrating books.
Your work is very much from the heart, and this particular book is different from anything else that you've done. One of the things that I really love about this book, just to give a little bit of a sneak peek for our listeners and viewers who are tuning in this week on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, normally when you think of the traditional children's picture book, there is a story, there's a story arc, and there's, follow the journey, and, here's the characters and things along the lines of this. But what you actually do is you take all of the letters of the alphabet, and there are different things that resonate. For example, like with the letter F, there is food trucks and falafel and fish and chips and frankfurters and flea markets and fields and my feather wears a fez, families and friends. So you're really doing your part to be able to connect with so many different fabrics within the fabric of immigrants and what they've brought to our country and the culture. There's just a celebration of all of that. So much more to dive into specifically with that. One of the things that I also love to be able to ask our guests that join us, you're obviously a veteran in the world of kidlit, so to speak, and maybe for those who are football fans tuning in, you've been around a few seasons, so to speak, as the expression goes. I feel that whenever we create something, even if we are a veteran in our chosen field, there can be some anxieties and insecurities and difficulties, fears, obstacles, problems, stressors, troubles, worries, you name it. It's very easy for a parent or a grandparent or an educator to say, Selina Alko, she's tried and true. She's got it made in the shade. She's written so many books. She's doing so well for herself. She's on cloud 9. It must be easy for her, right? And one of the things that I feel that it's important for all of us to do, even those who have been in our chosen fields for a long period of time, many of us are really stepping into more vulnerability right now. Could you share with our audience, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, specifically leading into this book, what were some of the challenges that you were experiencing along the way, the challenges and difficulties? And then what helped you to get through to the other side of this? Because of course we are on the other side of this, and we're talking about I is for Immigrants right now. Could you talk a little bit about, could you speak to that about, if you could?
Sure. Yeah. So the art for this book uh, I began to create the final art in January 2020. So it was just before the pandemic.
Okay.
And I had maybe finished 3 or 4 spreads. And suddenly in March, everything shut down. And I really hunkered down to complete the final art for this project. And it was such an uncertain time. And I felt like the only thing that was certain for me really was making the art for this book. And I really sort of poured my heart and soul into it. And I kept feeling, and I don't want to minimize the pain that so many people went through, with getting COVID and the illness. But I did feel like, in terms of the not knowing, and, with my own children having to move to remote learning, and the house being turned upside down, and me having sort of actually not being able to work in my own studio at home, because my teenagers, I allowed them to sort of use my studio to do their schoolwork. So I brought my artwork up to the kitchen table, and I kind of had to adapt and make do. And I sort of felt there were some parallels to the immigrant experience of adaptation and uncertainty, and feeling like there's a lot of unknowns, but you move forward anyway. You keep sort of taking things one day at a time and adjusting to the circumstances. So within my own journey of making this book, I was feeling more and more parallels to the feelings of being a new immigrant, and that feeling of even migration within my own home. And that was very vulnerable feeling, but it also very empowering in a way, because I did feel like, I felt like it was this book and this project that kind of kept me going. It gave me a purpose, and it helped me get through the first few months. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. And it's so fascinating because, I can only envision what, our forefathers, as the expression go, when, when many of them were like on the ship to Ellis Island, they were starting new. Mm-hmm. And in many respects, they didn't know what to expect. Many of them had literally sense to their name, if anything, and they came here with the desire to make a difference, to make a better life for themselves. And I feel in many respects that with COVID, some of that energy and the pandemic, some of that energy was still in place, because like in some way, shape, or form, we were all hoping that there was something that was on the other end of this. And there was a lot of isolation. There was just, like the people that we knew, our immediate circle, more or less. Yeah, we were able to connect with people virtually and things of that nature, which is great. And in many respects, during challenging times in the lives of our ancestors, they had specific things that helped them to stay centered and grounded. And I feel in many respects, we have been able to do that for ourselves in the process. This book really speaks on so many different levels as well. Before we actually dive into the pages of I is for Immigrants, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, it's very easy to dismiss our past in terms of our culture. It's very easy to say, well, they did this 100 years ago, or they did this 50 years ago. Like, that's not who I am right now. And this is one of the things that we'll also talk about towards the end of the interview as well. It's so important to embrace and honor your past while also blaze the trail for a future, something that's even more alignment for yourself. In terms of resonating with the different sorts of cultures, even if they're not necessarily our own, why do you feel that it's essential for us to really take the time to do that, and especially to teach that to our children, because at the end of the day, we're all parents, caregivers, and custodians of little ones in some way, shape, or form. And in order for these messages, these songs, these pearls of wisdom, in order for these to be able to continue to be passed on to our children, we need to be able to communicate those to them in the process. Could you share a little bit more about that with our listeners and viewers, if you could?
Okay, well, there are many things I could say to answer this question. One is that we all have a family story, and which enriches the fabric of our country as a whole. And the word immigrant and the concept of immigrants has gotten a bad reputation. It has these negative connotations, and for some reason I don't feel that way, but in the media and politically, the associations just are not as the way that they've been turned upside down. And I believe that my attempt in this book is to take back the word and the concept and infuse it with more of the positive aspects, the beautiful and enriching elements that so many people bring from all over the world when they move here, and add to our culture in terms of foods, in terms of traditions, in terms of artifacts, clothing. I mean, there are so many, dance, music. There are many, many aspects that have really become almost, at times you don't even know where the food or the thing comes from. I mean, what American does not love pizza? Or, we had, when we come together and share different songs even, I mean, there are, it really was my attempt to take out the sting and replace it with the joy. And I've been handling or tackling aspects of identity in most of my children's books since I started making books. So the idea of doing a book about immigrants was not really something so new to me per se, in terms of exploring identity or even my own identity, although there were aspects of my own cultural heritage that I put into this book that I hadn't yet dealt with, like my father's Turkish lineage. And it's opened up avenues for me now, I think, moving forward, even in terms of like new projects that I want to do. I have my own children happen to be biracial, so I've dealt with their sort of blended African American and Caucasian identities, as well as the history of race and interracial marriage in some of my other books to date. So, but this is a new one for me in terms of my own, like my Jewish history. And I feel like in the book, there's J is for Jewish deli, Y is for Yiddish, which is a type of Jewish slang. And it was really fun for me to put those details into this alphabet collection.
There's such a blend of color, words, messages, stories, love, and it's done in a very simplistic way. And for those of you who are tuning in, we appreciate you spending some time with us here in our neighborhood at Empowered Publicity and the Children's Book Spotlight Series. You are enjoying episode number 133. That is the 133rd trolley stop of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Again, John Masiulionis, joined by our featured guest, award-winning children's author and illustrator, Selina Alko. we are indeed ready to now dive into the pages of I is for Immigrants, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Henry Holt. I absolutely love the work of Henry Holt and Company. You can head on over to Selina's official website at selinaalko.com. If Amazon is your preferred online vehicle of choice, you can leave a 5-star review. That's one of the many ways that you can support Selina, the wonderful work that she is doing for children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books all across the country and all around the world. And if you feel guided to do so, there are many, many other wonderful books that Selina has written. And if you feel guided to do so as well, feel free to leave 5-star reviews for those as well too. Diving into the pages of this book, again, it's very deep, yet it's very simplistic at its core. And one of the things that I really love about children's books, especially I is for Immigrants, Selina, is that, you can line up 10 children. They come from 10 different backgrounds, 10 different walks of life, and they'll share 10 different responses. The universal theme is that this really is an ABC journey. It's introducing little ones to the alphabet. So if a little one is learning, their ABCs, this is a really special way to be able to do that. But it really is a celebration of cultures and lifestyles and ways of life and history, everything that immigrants coming to the United States have brought to the dance, so to speak. So it really is, I love how you classified it. It's a celebration of our neighbors, our family, and our friends. Could you share with us a little bit more about, how the book was formulated? Like, when did you know you wanted this to be an A to Z journey? Was this something early on for yourself? Because again, it would have been easier to just, maybe have a character of an immigrant or have several immigrants be shown in the children's book and kind of have, the traditional children's book story. Why was it important for you to share this message in this way, I is for Immigrants?
It's interesting that you suggest it might have been easier to choose a character, because I find that the alphabet format is easier for me because it is like a puzzle, and it's a certain challenge to come up with something for every letter, or multiple things per letter. But it's also very much goes with the way that I work in terms of collage and mixed media. So I love the idea of blending and mixing different elements together. So if I come up with, say, 6 different things for the letter B, then I get to then choose a composition, if B is for bodega, and then fit 5 other elements into the bodega or around it. Or I get to sort of design the page in a very organic and mixed media, playful way, using collage and paint and colored pencil and found objects, and so it becomes like it's a metaphor for the immigrants coming together and blending and working and bringing their different strengths and values to our country. So it worked on so many levels. Also, I had done another alphabet book about 8 years ago called B is for Brooklyn, which is all about the borough and neighborhoods that I live in here. And that to me was also so much fun to do, and worked in a similar way where every letter of the alphabet, like I was able to find enough interesting and compelling subjects. And within that book, the letter I did have I is for Immigrants. And this was 8 years ago. And at some point that image it kind of went viral when, as I was mentioning before, when the word immigrants was sort of getting this very negative connotation. And my editor at Henry Holt, she had suggested we do a sequel. And we kind of came up with the concept together to do I is for Immigrants, because that image from B is for Brooklyn had become popular and was resonating with so many. So it seemed And that was a manuscript. Coming up with all the ideas for every letter came together very fast, I have to say. And the sketches, it really flowed for me. It's much, much harder for me to come up with a character and a story than it is for me to do an alphabet book.
I love how everything just comes together. I think that, you know, when you're sharing that, it's just reminding that everything always comes together, and it's a natural jump off point, right? It's, you know, being able to have I is for immigrants, in B is for Brooklyn, and then to kind of expand upon that. I also love the fact, you know, doing a little bit of research on your work, you know, growing up, I think that two of my go-tos, well, I should say three of my go-tos, one was Curious George, one was the Berenstain Bears, and one was the Boxcar Children. That's kind of like in ascending order, so to speak, because like Curious George, you're a little tyke, right? And then after that, you have the Berenstain Bears, and then of course the Boxcar Children, a little bit older than that. And I also do have an appreciation for folk music. One of the last concerts that I went to when I lived in Buffalo, I loved Peter, Paul, and Mary. And, you know, Mary's no longer with us, obviously. She's no longer with us in the physical realm. But every year on PBS, I just wanted to share this. It's one of my favorite holiday traditions that I still do. Talking about traditions, is that on PBS, they had the Peter, Paul, and Mary holiday celebration. It was in New York City. It was taped in New York City, and it aired in the late 80s. And PBS stations across the country would air it every single year. And I remember taping it on VHS. I burned it onto DVD, and I that's part of my holiday tradition as well too. Talking about traditions, I think that, you know, as we're stepping into the holiday season right now, whether you're Polish, German, Lithuanian, there's you know, even if you don't necessarily celebrate Christmas, you can celebrate Hanukkah, you can celebrate Kwanzaa. People have their own sorts of traditions that they just, like, you know, me watching the Peter, Paul, and Mary holiday celebration, right? Why is it important, you feel, to carry on the traditions of our ancestors while also being open to creating new traditions that are also more in resonance with us too?
Because traditions connect us to our past and to each other, and they're opportunities to get together. And it's really important, I think, for humans to have human contact and to be social. I mean, that's another thing I think that we all discovered during the pandemic, was this impetus to be social and to want to be with other humans, even if it was in smaller pods. And that's what family holidays are supposed to be about. It's supposed to be coming together and sharing and being close and eating together. That's why foods have so much emotional power, really, especially traditional foods. Sometimes just the smells alone can bring us way, way back. And I think I know I enjoy cooking, and I sometimes just the holiday prep alone, the cooking and the baking and the decorating, it can really bring a lot of like positive feelings. I know that the holidays can also stir up a lot of very mixed feelings, but I like your point of creating new traditions. Sometimes people choose to invite their friends over for family for the holidays and create new groups and gatherings because that may be safer. You know, I'm a big believer in blending traditions as well. Another book that I did for the holidays is called Daddy Christmas and Hanukkah Mama, because my own children celebrate both Christmas and Hanukkah. And I wanted, when they were very little, I wanted to reflect that in a story, in a book, and show that that is a positive thing. And I myself, I was raised Jewish, but I've come to actually very much enjoy putting up the tree, the Christmas tree, and putting on the ornaments, and, you know, as well as making latkes for Hanukkah, which are potato pancakes, fried potato pancakes, and lighting the candles for Hanukkah. So, you know, it's a blended season in our home.
I love that. And I think that it's about creating that healthy balance. I think one of the things that really we've been learning throughout 2021 is creating a healthy balance for ourselves. And especially around the holiday season, it's a matter of like, I know there were things growing up that I no longer resonate with. I understand that, my parents did this, my grandparents did this, my great-grandparents probably did this. And it's important to honor how you're feeling as well, too. And I know that, I had recently moved last year from Buffalo to San Diego, and there's things that I'm able to do in the San Diego area that I wasn't able to do in Buffalo, especially around the holiday season and whatnot. But again, the things like, every year, and it's a little difficult to find pierogies out here in San Diego. You could walk into any grocery store in Buffalo. So I'm still going to do my part with putting out the intentions to have some pierogies, because that's like at least every year, whether it be at Thanksgiving or Christmas, like that's the connection that I always have to my grandmother. And I think one of the things that you're also helping little ones do as well, especially, and maybe this was somewhat meant within your book, but I know this is how I intuited it for I is for Immigrants, is that even though my grandmother was born here and my grandfather on my mother's side were born here, my grandmother and grandfather on my father's side, they were born in Lithuania. But it's really helping children to be able to connect with treasured memories of the past, a connection that maybe their grandmother had shared with them. Hey, here's what I did when I was growing up, and maybe they're no longer with them. So there's just so many unique things that children will be able to experience when reading I is for Immigrants. We're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 133 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, our 133rd Trolley Stop. As part of our holiday season celebration, award-winning children's author and illustrator Selina Alko is joining us. We are sharing her brand new release, I is for Immigrants, which is courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Henry Holt. They do a wonderful job with this book, especially. We encourage you, if Amazon is your preferred online vehicle of choice, you can head on over to Amazon.com, leave a 5-star review for I is for Immigrants if you feel guided to do so, or for B is for Brooklyn, Daddy Christmas, and Hanukkah Mama, any of Selina's other amazing children's books. You can also head on over to her official website, selinaalko.com, or stay connected with her via any of her social media platforms, which we have included in the description below. You share something very beautiful on your website, and it's talking about, this is kind of how I intuit it, but the importance of your why you're doing what you're doing each and every day. And you share, when you're writing, especially those who are just, starting to write for the first time, maybe they're starting to write their first children's book or wondering like, what do I write about today? Or if I'm writing my first book, what is it going to be about? And you share, write what is closest to your heart. It's a very deep and a very vulnerable message for those who are expanding into the next part of their journey, the next part of their path. And whether it be journaling is helping them to move through that, whether it be they're starting to write their first children's book, or maybe they're experiencing some sort of creative or emotional block and they're going through some deep healing right now. Speak to us, if you could, walk us through really what that means right now, writing what is closest to your heart, and really why that's an integral part of what we're doing right now as creatives.
I think it ties in with how we all have stories, our own stories within us, and it's a matter of getting deeply in touch with yourself and what you are most interested in, because those are the stories that will then be most interesting to other people. I think passion and true depth of connection to a topic will shine through. It will come through if people can sense when a topic or a story is authentic, if it comes really from a deep place versus trying to and I have nothing against coming up with random ideas that one might want to explore and do as well. But I guess it's worked best for me to try to, tap into what's closest to my heart. And that's the advice I really find valuable to give to others. I think that answered the question.
It does. It does. And I feel that it's the message of that speaks for itself. When I saw that on your website, I said, you know what, because you probably get asked by aspiring authors, people who are starting to write their first children's book, children that maybe say, hey, Selina, at some point in time growing up, I want to write. And a lot of times we can be, what came to mind when I saw that from your website, we can be very analytical. We can be very in our head and starting to ask what's the perfect children's book, or what's this? And you really want to have the best thing. And when you're really speaking from your heart, everything flows. Your writing, your creation, how you're serving other people. And I just really feel like this is why I'm so excited for all of us, because I really feel right now we're being given this golden opportunity to live our lives from our hearts. It's whether or not we choose that or not. Either way, it's going to work itself out. One of the things that we always love to do to close out our Children's Book Spotlight series episodes, we always like to give a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, of course, the beloved Mr. Rogers. Of course, he inspired children, countless generations of children through his time on the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, through his commencement speeches, his talks at different areas, different places across the country, and through the neighborhood. He always took the time, and he always kept the time, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. He encouraged all of us to remember those who helped love us into being. And that was his way of saying, remember those on your path that helped that believed in you when you maybe didn't believe in yourself. I like to use the term earth angels that come across your path. Someone may be in your life for, as the expression goes, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And there's been many people that have brought you to where you are, that have shaped you and molded you into the amazing author and illustrator that you are, the wonderful mother that you are as well, too. Who would you like to recognize on episode number 133 of the Children's Book Spotlight series who helped love you, Selina Alko, into being?
Wow. I want to mention, well, first I want to thank Dan Yaccarino for recommending me for this program. I had a mentor in school, a wonderful, wonderful teacher and children's book illustrator named Lisa DeSimone. So I'd like to thank her, or that's what we're doing, thanking, basically. My mother, my sister, my extended family, my father, of course. He passed away 8 years ago, but he's hugely formative to me, as well as many different artistic mentors growing up and at school when I went to the School of Visual Arts. I have many colleagues and friends who inspire me regularly, and I very, very, very much I'm appreciative of my community and living in Brooklyn, and thank you, John.
Aw. This is, well, we're by no means, we're still in the process of wrapping things up, but I always love this part of the program because I think that there's so many, some people will say it takes a village, or Rome wasn't built in a day. And there's so many people. And, I remember when, most people remember when Mr. Rogers received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmys. And he would always say that no matter where those people are that you're remembering, whether they be, near or far or in heaven, that they are proud of you. And I get really emotional still talking about this because I know, especially around this time of the year, I really think of my grandmother, and even just, I am so grateful. I find myself taking the time to reflect on people that are no longer in my life. But I mean, it took me a long time to get to where I am right now. It took me a long time to make this move from Buffalo to San Diego. And if it were not for so many people, I wouldn't be here physically, and I wouldn't be here in San Diego. And, this also leads me into how we close out our children's book spotlight series. We also, there's a lot of magic that's happening in our lives. I really believe that we have the ability to bring the heartfelt dreams and desires and goals and wishes for ourselves and for those that are in our lives. We can help to bring those to form and shape. So we have a little segment here on the Children's Book Spotlight series called 3 Wishes. And Selina, you have given from your heart to children, to parents, to families, to educators, to those who love great children's books all across the country and all around the world. So through this program, you are being given 3 wishes. Now, they can be for yourself, they can be for your family, they can be for the children of the world. We always like to give a little tip of the cap to the late Robin Williams, who played the Genie of the Lamp in the beloved 1992 Disney animated classic Aladdin. So these wishes, they can be for yourself, for anyone, but you are worthy of these 3 wishes today. So what would these 3 wishes be for you, Selina?
Whoa. Okay. This is really exciting. I'll take the first wish to my children, my son and my daughter, who I think had a difficult time in the pandemic, and I will wish them both strength and solid mental health and productivity, and that they become thriving young adults. My second wish will be for children all over. I know there's been a lot of suffering, again, because of the pandemic, and right now with the distraction of social media and the overwhelm of our society, the fast pace, I really hope children all over will have more access to books and learning, and will help. And along those lines, I hope that the children of the future, of now, will help make the future better for all of us, and in terms of so many things, but I think primarily climate change. So would that be my third wish, or can that still be part of my second wish?
I still feel that can be part of your second wish. So go ahead with your third wish to share that as well too.
Maybe I can be a little selfish for this one. I just hope that I can keep doing I can keep publishing children's books and continue to do projects that are interesting, that inspire me, that help other people, and that I will have a thriving continued career for the rest of my years.
I believe that those wishes are very much heartfelt, and I do believe that they will all come to pass for you, because I can tell and feel that you genuinely care about children and making the world a better place. Again, for those of you who spend some time with us here on this wonderful trolley stop, we encourage you, if you haven't had the chance to do so, to head on over to Selina's official website, selinaalko.com. You can head on over to amazon.com, leave a 5-star review for I is for Immigrants, the newest release from Selina Alko, courtesy of our friends at Henry Holt. They did a wonderful job putting this together in the process. Again, leaving a 5-star review for Selina's I is for Immigrants is one of the many ways that you can continue to support and encourage her, to let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books. While on Amazon or Selina's official website, you can also purchase your copies of B is for Brooklyn, Daddy Christmas, and Hanukkah Mama, and any of Selina's other amazing children's books. In our few remaining seconds that we have left here, few remaining moments, I should say, 2022 is just around the corner. It's literally on the horizon. Could you give us a little sneak peek of what you're working on behind the scenes on your end of things for 2022?
Sure. I am working on a book written by Karen Stelson about the Czech Kindertransport. It's a nonfiction World War II story about the Jewish children that were saved. There were 10,000 children saved. And I'm illustrating it. It's with Carol Rhoda Lerner Publishing. I'm finishing the art this spring, so it probably will not come out till 2023.
Okay, perfect. Well, you definitely have been busy for a long period of time. So in the world of children's books, sometimes the best things come, I should say in life, really the best things come to those who wait. Raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 133 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. There's many hands that you're seeing from myself and Selina. Many little ones are holding up their hands on screen as well too. This has been a magical trolley stop, and we assure you that there is more magic to come, because we very much believe in magic here. I think we're quoting Olivia Newton-John from the movie Xanadu from 1980, if I'm not mistaken. Have to believe that we are magic. We totally are here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series. If this message has lifted your spirits, if it's brought more love and joy into your heart, if you say, John, Selina, I'm going to go to my local grocery store and have some pierogies and honor my Polish ancestors, or just to be able to honor the Polish culture. If you now have a desire to be able to honor your past and all of those who came into your life in terms of your family members that brought you to the dance of this present moment, if this message if you feel that it can inspire someone as well too, who are looking to be able to reconnect with the ancestors in their lives, we encourage you, if you haven't had the chance to do so, to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop that has been episode number 133 of the Children's Books Spotlight Series. If you are a children's author, if you are a children's illustrator, and you would like to share your inspiring story in the release of your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, we encourage you to head on over to our official website at empoweredpublicity.com, or you can connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Facebook and Instagram at Empowered Publicity, and Twitter at Empowered_PR. Two little tips of the cap. One to one of our favorite neighbors. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. Each and every month, David joins us on the Empowered Publicity Neighborly Reviews bookcast, and together we deliver heartfelt reviews from the latest heartfelt children's books from the shining stars in the kidlit community here at Empowered Publicity. If you are interested in having myself and David share your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews bookcast, you know where to connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com or any of our social media platforms in the process. And of course, a tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors here in beautiful San Diego, California, Laura Kavanaugh, the host and executive producer of San Diego Living, which is the official home of Empowering Reads for Kids, which of course is the official television children's book review segment here at Empowered Publicity. We have the abilities to be able to share the messages of such wonderful and beautiful shining stars, sharing their newest heartfelt and heart-centered children's books with children, parents, families, educators, and everyone here in America's finest city here in San Diego on the CW San Diego CBS 8. So if you are a children's author and you would like for Laura and I to be able to review your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of Empowering Reads for Kids, you know where to connect with us. And of course, we're shaping up 2022 behind the scenes here at Empowered Publicity. There's a lot of special announcements that we look forward to sharing with you as well too. So stay connected with us at empoweredpublicity.com. If we can be of service to you, you're interested in scheduling a discovery call to see how we can be of service to you at PR from the Heart, you can connect with us via our official website or any of our social media platforms on screen. Again, one last time, I is for Immigrants, the newest release from our featured guest who joined us this week on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, Selina Alko. You can head on over to her official website, selinaalko.com, or to head on over to amazon.com. You can leave a 5-star review for I is for Immigrants, along with B is for Brooklyn, Daddy Christmas, and Hanukkah Mama, any of Selina's other award-winning and amazing children's books in the process. We want to thank all of you, our listeners and viewers, as we hear the trolley. And when we hear the trolley, we know that it's time to go. So we want to thank all of you for your continued support of Empowered Publicity, for your support of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, for your support of children's authors and illustrators all across the country and all around the world, such as Selina, who are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, all of us who love great children's books. We want to thank you for your support of local libraries and for children's bookstores as well, because they are the pillars of our community. And above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. So for Selina Alko, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you for spending some time with us here in our neighborhood, here at Empowered Publicity in the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And again, as one final tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, Mr. Rogers, he reminded us that we are loved and that we are special just the way that we are, that he liked us just the way that we are. And 143, that was his way of saying that I love you. 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. We like to say 243 here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Selina was very kind enough to give us some of her free time this week on the program. There's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you, and that means that we love you. We are reminding you that you are loved, you are whole, you are healthy, you are complete, that you are special, that you are cherished. We see, we hear, we acknowledge you, and we honor you for wherever you are at on your path, that we love you just the way that you are. And again, for Selina Alko, for myself, John Masiulionis, this has been episode number 133 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We'll see all of you once again for another magical trolley stop, once again very soon. Thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. Goodbye for now.